Welcome back to Brashonomics, everyone. Heather Moore filling in for Ben Brashon on Monday, which is our real estate and finance day. And we're so lucky to have some top local Seattle realtors in the studio today. And joining us now for the first time is Sandy Walsh, a realtor with RE/MAX Metro Realty, and she's been serving buyers and sellers and investors since 2007. Sandy facilitates your home search by helping unveil the Seattle real estate market as a unique tapestry of micro neighborhoods offering subtle, distinct flavors that resonate with discerning audiences and future residents. Well, hey, Sandy, how are you?
I am well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us. So, you work in the Seattle market. Is there a specific area that you help buyers and sellers in? Where do your arms reach to?
Well, as we know, the Seattle area is quite large and covers a lot of area. Mm-hmm. And I generally work in what I call core Seattle. Okay. So you're talking about mostly south of the city limits, north of the stadiums, and everything in between. I often also work with buyers. I have buyers working up in Edmonds right now and north. Also high-end east side. I grew up over there. So
me too.
And it is all about where they want to be.
Right.
And the neighborhoods, as you mentioned in the introduction, the neighborhoods are all so distinct.
Right.
Queen Anne is not Magnolia, is not Belltown, is not Ballard. Everything is distinct and unique, which actually keeps it really interesting.
Yeah, well, I can imagine. And, we talked a little bit about inventory and what's going on in the market. Everything's very distinct. One thing that seems to be common among all these areas right now is what we've been calling the dearth of inventory.
Yes, indeed, and multiple offers are back.
Yes,
and
as we've heard, which is crazy.
It is.
Off the air, Ryan Leopold was just saying, 20 offers on his dad's house? That we'll talk to him a little bit about that. But
what exactly does dearth mean, Heather?
That means lack of.
Can we define that one?
It's lack of. It's a real word. Thank you.
That's impressive. I like that.
I will admit I've made up words before, but that is a real one. Sandy can back me up on that.
Oh, yes, it is. Actually, it is. No, it is true. We don't have a lot of inventory, and it's what I'm finding is that a lot of buyers are coming to me thinking that it's still a buyer's market and that they can just write whatever they want on whatever house they want, or if they don't like a price that they see on a house, their comments to me are, oh, well, wait a few weeks and the sellers can sort of come to their senses. And then a week later, the house is gone.
Yeah, except that the seller's like, no, we're not coming to our senses. Our senses are that someone's going to offer us what we want.
Pretty much. And a lot of the news media, sometimes you hear still that the economy is still in the very gradual recovery, and you hear that things are not where they were 5-6 years ago and things like that. And so buyers sort of soak that in. They don't realize until you get out there and you start losing out on homes when you're writing offers that, okay, wait a minute, this is a whole lot more competitive than that.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you because, I do follow real estate news, maybe more than the average person does. I do work on a real estate show, but I think if you have any pulse as to what's going on, yes, things aren't where they were during the peak, but why do people really think that things haven't picked up? Where are they getting the misinformation? Is it just they're not paying attention?
I don't know that they're not paying attention. I think that generally speaking, the overall message that we all get is that it's still so hard out there. Unemployment isn't where we want it to be, all of this. Plus, I think there's a little bit of a hangover, you might say, from the glory days of like the height of '07 when things all of a sudden just went sort of pop and the prices were super high. They never really should have gotten up to that point.
Right.
And so now we're still recovering from that. And so the sellers aren't always happy that they're not back where they were a few years ago. The buyers are still thinking that, oh, well, we can just wait because it's still recovering. And I think it's sort of all a combination until they get out there with me and they start looking at houses and we start looking at what things are selling for nearby, which of course is the best way to value a home.
Yeah.
So you look at what something has sold for very close by in the recent past, and that'll give you the best estimation of what that home will probably be worth.
So I imagine that the conversations have changed with buyers a little bit. And, they come to you. They still think it's a buyer's market. They want to maybe offer listing price or under. What examples do you give or how do you illustrate to buyers how competitive the market is? You'd mentioned comps and stuff like that, but kind of explain that to us a little bit more.
Well, what I like to do is I like to talk to the buyers about what's on the market nearby the home that they're looking at. And we look at what is actually either in contract or sold. And we look at the price per square footage, make sure it's comparable. I actually coach them through the process of how to look at what would be a comparable versus just if it's a mile away, it's really not comparable.
So explain that a little bit more in detail, what a comparable is.
So the way I run my practice and the way I think is the best to serve the customers and the buyers and the sellers is that I keep the homes that I compare to within probably a quarter-mile radius of the home, if possible, because then you're likely talking about the same neighborhood. And then I also like to keep it within 30 days, if that's possible, gradually making the circle wider if you don't find anything. You want to make sure you keep it to the same number of bedrooms. You want to make sure and you keep it to pretty tight radius of the square footage. So if it's a 1,500 square foot home, you're not going to compare it to a 3,000 square foot home because they're not the same thing. You want to look at the styling. If you're not going to compare a Victorian home to a craftsman style home, they're simply not the same home. And so you coach the buyers to see what is selling for nearby so that you know what would be an appropriate offer to write on this home, because you have to keep it in line with the market value. And a seller's list price, of course, is fantasy land. That's what they're hoping to get.
Yeah.
And we will see what happens. And that's when the offers come in and you decide what the market value will be, which is the agreement between buyer and seller, nothing more.
Right. So do buyers sometimes, they'll come to you and say, saw this great, 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Queen Anne. It went for $450,000. I'm expecting to find that in Green Lake.
Absolutely. And they do. And it's funny because luckily a lot of the buyers that I work with are pretty distinct in terms of the neighborhoods they want to be in. So they won't necessarily compare Queen Anne to Green Lake. But again, like you say, they're completely...
They wouldn't necessarily compare it?
No, because they want to be in Green Lake or they want to be in Queen Anne. So they're not comparing
They're
them
different
because
neighborhoods. I live in Seattle, so I know. But
Yeah. So no, they want to be in one area, and hopefully we'll compare the homes within that area.
You say you work in core Seattle neighborhoods. Are any areas more challenging right now to find homes than others?
Of course. I would say that Ballard is challenging, Queen Anne is challenging, Magnolia, Madison Park, Capitol Hill. The close-in neighborhoods are probably the most challenging.
So basically they're all challenging.
Yeah, it's difficult. Inventory, like you mentioned, we have a dearth of inventory.
I know. It can be definitely tough out there. But, people are getting the homes they want. Homes are moving. Buyers are winning offers. We talked a little bit about this earlier in the hour. But how do you help buyers get ready to go to make an offer? I mean, some of these homes we've heard are getting sold within a few days. And that, for me, I've never been a home buyer before. I rent. I'll get there someday.
We'll have to chat after the show.
Right? So, but it would seem scary that it's your first time going into it and your realtor tells you, so you might have to make this decision today or tomorrow.
It's true. And it's funny because that's one of the things that I can offer my clients. And I specialize in first-time home buyers. It's one of my specialties. I was a first-time home buyer when I was 22. So
you probably get a lot of freaked out people like me.
You do. And what I find, I have them fill out what I call my home finder profile, and it includes your must-haves, can't-stands, and it basically creates the list of what you're looking for. And I let them know that they need to be pre-approved because we're not going to be able to get anywhere if they're not.
Right.
And they need to be able to bring their checkbook with them because the market is moving so quickly that they may need to write a check that day. And then I also let them know that it's okay to be freaked out. It's a big, hairy, scary deal. I don't care what price bracket you're looking in. It's the largest single purchase anybody ever makes. And so it's sort of an honor for me to be able to help them through that process because you only buy your first home once.
Yeah.
And how I help them through that process and their perception of the way it goes will forever help them through their real estate purchasing and selling for the rest of their life.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot to learn about the process, and that's why you need a real estate professional to help. Do you find that first-time home buyers, you mentioned the must-haves and dream wish list. Do you find that people are reasonable about what they want in their first home and have reasonable expectations, or do you got to knock them down a few pegs?
Well, it's hard to say because everybody's different. Some people are just, I want 3 bedrooms and I want a driveway and I want a garage. And they're really serious about that. Others are a little bit more particular about it and they...
I want an open floor plan,
right?
Granite countertops or something nice.
For
really
$100,000 on Queen Anne.
Yeah. Can we do that right now?
No, not in any kind of living condition.
Is there a dearth of those properties available, Heather?
I don't know why you're making fun of me. I think you're just mad you didn't know what the word meant.
I'm still impressed. I'm back here really impressed. I'm intimidated about going on in a minute, so I'm getting nervous now.
Well, it's true. And what I work with the buyers and we talk about what's available, what's not available. And then I encourage them to maybe sort of back off on the emotion a little bit, look at the criteria list that they've put together, and then look at the listings we're looking at and compare the listing that we're looking at to the list that they gave me.
Right.
And if it hits on the majority of those items, then maybe it's a candidate to write an offer for. So that helps them sort of back off the emotion. And when I tell them that it's okay to freak out, I also tell them that when we write the offer, the next thing that will happen is you will completely freak out.
You will lose your mind.
Yeah. And then what happens when that does actually come to pass, what happens is they've been now coached that to expect the freak out. So when the freak out happens, they're like, oh, I'm right on schedule. Okay.
Good. Well, and it's a really exciting process for home buyers. And, even though you might not get all your must-haves and everything you might want in a dream home, I think it's still really exciting, and people just get, happy about what they end up with. And once the whole process is over, there's a deep sigh of relief. Is that what comes after the freak out?
It is. And it's so funny because then they all get excited about, I can paint this room and I can do that. Oh, you mean I can do that? Well, yes, you'll be owning the home.
You own it. You can do whatever you want.
And on the other hand, there's no super to call, right? So if you have to replace the light bulb, you kind of need to know how to do that. And sellers, too, get super excited about the fact that they're moving on to the next stage in their life. I have a brand new listing coming up in Madrona in the next couple of weeks. And it's really exciting.
So see everyone out there, if you're listening, there's, inventory is tough right now, but buying a home can be really exciting and really rewarding. And it's important you just find the right coach to help you through the whole process, like Sandy or Alan, who have been on the show with us today. I want to thank you so much, Sandy, for joining us. We're going to go to break. After break, we'll be back with Ryan Leopold. You're listening to Brashonomics. This is Heather Moore. We'll be right back.